I guess it's not every day that you introduce one of your bosses to give a presentation. I will do that now. And see, Joe made a comment about sitting in front of the computer and collecting data points, and it taking so much time. And it seems like one of the continuous struggles that we have in encouraging people to continue to monitor landowners and even ourselves is making things more efficient. And maybe that's because we're lazy, but I think it's also because time is at a premium. And so, not to steal any thunder, so I'm just going to hand it over to Rachel and let her talk about some ways to maybe do that. So let's welcome.
So like Brian said, I'm going to talk about using your smartphone as a range monitoring tool. It's a little intimidating looking out into the audience. There's a lot of young faces that are probably so much more tech savvy than I am, so slightly intimidating, but hopefully we'll make our way through this and ask questions as you need. I think we have a little bit of leeway, so if you have questions as we go along, feel free to raise your hand. So how many of you do rangeland monitoring? I hope I see everyone's hand go up. Excellent. So this is not a new concept or a new definition to any of us, but I thought it was worth revisiting and maybe re-emphasizing parts of it. Monitoring is the orderly collection and analysis of data to determine progress towards goals. And I want to say, as a society and as a profession, rangeland managers, we have done a good job of going out there and showing people how to monitor. How many times have we done programs on this is the method, these are the techniques? I think people have that down pretty darn well. In fact, sometimes monitoring, you say the word monitoring and people tend to glaze over, right? They've heard that a lot. But I would make the case that maybe the second portion, the analysis portion of this, maybe we haven't done as good of a job as we could with the analysis. I often, and maybe you have had this comment as well, Rachel, I have this shoebox full of data. What do I do with it? You know, what can I build from this, or what can be determined from this? And I think, again, as land managers, we need to take that next step and say, okay, a lot of people know how to monitor. We can even teach them again how to monitor. But what do we do with that information, and how do we get it in a concise form to where we can see if we're trending up or trending down towards our goals or away from our goals? And I think that's going to lead us to make better range management decisions in the long run. So hopefully, throughout this talk, we'll talk about ways that make it more efficient and maybe a little bit easier to get there and take on that analysis piece. So just to review, I know there's probably, I'm preaching to the choir on many of these next few slides, but worth a review and worth revisiting, I think. So what does monitoring do? We often provide information on a site focusing on that range or that plant community of interest. And without an assessment, many of us know, and many of us teach that without a good assessment of your landscapes and of your plant communities, you can't provide or produce some sort of a plan or a way forward that's suitable to your goals or to your vegetation condition without that initial assessment or grasp of what's going on within your plant communities. So why we collect this information provides direction, again, towards those goals and objectives. We want to monitor those changes, but we also want to record the resource conditions. I thought that was an interesting talk by John yesterday, talking about the precipitation and how that influences our plant communities. And sometimes we forget to write those things down. You know, often we go out there and we do our cover by life form or our cover by species, and we know what that cover is, but how does it relate to the precipitation and the timing and what's going on within our systems that way? Again, determine if our strategy is working. I appreciated that from John, that flexibility piece. We need to build that in, I think, into our programs. And once we analyze what we've collected, we can begin to be flexible. I often tell people that I speak to, I think that's where range management can become more than a science, but an art as well. We can build what we want to see. You know, we can paint the picture that we want to see on our landscape. But we have to know what's there, and we have to analyze that information over time. So again, to review what current vegetation monitoring looks like now, and maybe how we can emphasize that analysis piece a little bit better. Photos are a great way. I think that's a really simple way. A lot of us have cameras. That's just what Sam was talking about, those high-resolution cameras, and we can get some really great photos. But just taking a landscape photo, this is from the University of Idaho Rangeland Center, and I think this really depicts what we can detect and what we can see by just looking at a picture. Picture being worth 1,000 words, I think, in this case. It would be interesting, I think, from 1990 to 2002, could we have detected a threshold somewhere in there? Maybe a picture collected with some quantitative data to see where that threshold was that really tipped it over to a cheatgrass-dominated state. So pictures are a great way, but we have to be able to put those together. Going back to that comment from the landowner that he said, Rachel, I have a bunch of pictures and information in the shoebox, but has he laid them next to one another to make better decisions for his landscape? Maybe not, because he just has kept them in the shoebox. So again, going past that, just collecting to the analysis piece. Line point intercept is another one that we do very commonly. I think in our offices, install our transect, we record our cover data and put it in appropriate columns. But how many of us, and not to pick on Joe or anything, but he said, the other Joe, right? The other one behind you. It's almost painful sometimes, right, to actually do something with your data. You get it back, and you spend all that time in the field collecting it. Sometimes you don't want to be in front of the computer actually incorporating it. So I think a lot of us have line point intercept data put in a folder or somewhere else, but sometimes it doesn't make it to the computer. I think landscape appearance, by nature, being a short-term monitoring, we maybe do a little bit better job of putting that picture together because we are estimating forage utilization on an annual basis. So a lot of our landowners, and we help them along the way, right? We help them discuss decisions and strategies on what to do differently using landscape appearance. So this is probably one that we do a pretty good job of putting those pieces together year after year to make our pasture adjustments, to make our moving dates and moving pastures based on our utilization levels that we've collected. Daubenmire is another one. Again, we systematically place a 20 by 50 centimeter quadrat looking at cover, canopy cover by species or by life form. And again, you can collect that out in the field, but sometimes it doesn't make it there to the computer afterwards. These are all things we're pretty familiar with, right? We're familiar with these methods. We know how to do them fairly well. A lot of our methods that I just went through have similar steps to reach the same product, to reach your information piece. You gather your monitoring forms when you're going out to the office. You have a stack of your papers. You collect your GPS coordinates, so you've got to get that GPS in your bag. You take your photos. So you've got to get your camera in your bag. Then you actually run the transect or take your data points somehow, conducting that monitoring. You take information back to the office once you have it on your sheet, and you take it back there. Then you have to take your camera and download the pictures, download the waypoints. Then you enter the data from the sheets that you've collected, and then you finally analyze the data. And I would, like I said, I would say that sometimes this gets lost in the shuffle because that's a pretty long list, right? And that's a pretty daunting task. No wonder people glaze over when we say the word monitoring. I've often thought about actually just renaming it. You know, maybe coming up with a different word than monitoring, something new and fresh. And but when we look at this is pretty common for all our methods. Sometimes, no wonder it can be kind of daunting and it's a little bit exhaustive. So are there ways that we can be a little more efficient? This is just a look at the time constraints and how much time. This is a very coarse and a very crude kind of table, but this is looking at a very rough estimate of the time that we use with these methods currently and the costs associated with that. So photo points are pretty easy to go out there and snap a shot. But once we start doing point intercept, I think that's probably a comment I hear most often. Man, it takes so much time. You know, it's so much time to actually write that out and get it done. So I thought that was great of Virginia. Time is the constraint of a lot of us. It's not just us as professionals, but managers. And so what can we do to make it more efficient? Are there ways that we can make vegetation monitoring easier? I say yes, there are. Maybe that we could not only make it easier, but we can really grasp and capture that analysis piece that we're missing. So here's all the equipment. We make sure we have our clipboard going out there. We make sure we have our camera in our bag. We make sure we have our GPS, all the correct data forms. It can be kind of, although Michelle's gotten really good, she's got a whole little pad. It's pretty tight, and her toolkit's pretty small. But there's a lot of things we have in our toolkit before we go out there, right? Well, what's something that maybe has all of those capabilities that we have in our pocket every day? Well, maybe a lot of the younger folks definitely have in their pockets every day. I can say I'm kind of an old soul. I just worked up into the smartphone world. So, is this a tool that we can use that has those capabilities? Yes, we can usually take GPS points with our phone. They usually have pretty high resolution and good cameras on them. And now I think we can start to put our data forms on there that will make that a little bit easier to incorporate and put that data into the machine. We'll get to that soon. But some are already using this technology, right? There's a lot of folks that are already doing things like this. The EdMaps Early Detection and Distribution Mapping System is a free app. Is anyone familiar with the EdMap? I think it can be a really good tool. It's a free app. All it just requires is creating an account. And this is a way we're actually putting management and monitoring into an app system. So we'll go through this one and then talk about how that relates to where we're moving in the rangeland monitoring app. This app is mainly used for early detection, rapid response. And many of us know once we detect those weeds early, we have a better chance of eradication or controlling them in the long run. Many of you work in those systems. I think this actually could be useful if you have producers or if you yourselves and people within your organization or within your office want to download the EdMap. This is a great way to detect new weeds that may be on your allotments or on your private property. And who better to ask than the people that are riding their horses across this property all the time, or that are hunting, or that are fishing everywhere. So I'll go through just briefly how this one works before we move on, because I think it could be a useful tool for many of you in your offices as well. So basically you download EdMap and you put your username, you get one of those, and it brings you up to this screen where you select a category. So for the purposes of this example, I'm going to select a 4 for this one. So we're looking at blue weed for this example. This is something that has actually been documented in Wyoming, but that's not very prevalent, so it's one to look out for. So we'll use blue weed. You select this from the list, and they're by common name, they're alphabetical. What's great about this one is they actually give you pretty great pictures, so you can say, is this really this weed or is it not this weed? And you can tell your landowners this as well. So in the info, that gives you all those information points. In the report, this section that you just run to this report tab, you can take a picture of the weed. If you aren't very close in your accuracy of your GPS, you can actually drag the point to the place where you know it is. And then you document the infestation, entering the number of acres or square feet, and then provide some notes like it's patchy or there's only a few plants or something like that. So it's a pretty easy way. If I were managing an allotment, I think it's a good way to document weed infestations. And like I said, the boots on the ground can really tell you what's going on, and it's a quick and easy way that you can monitor your weed infestation. Then anybody can go, it's a nationwide, anybody, whoever has this app, or whoever is interested actually can just go to www.edmaps.org, and you can actually see the infestations that have already been documented. So if you're curious about a weed in your area, you think it might be there, you can actually just go to this website and see if it has indeed been documented within your area. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but that's one way to monitor weeds and something that we can look to. Other people are using phone apps for this type of monitoring on our landscapes. But what about vegetation monitoring? What about our rangeland monitoring that we do on a daily basis? Can we incorporate smartphones into this? So I've teamed up with AgTerra, which Natalie is here, I believe. It is a big part of this. So AgTerra has been great. They're stationed here in Sheridan and has been a great partner on this in building our forms and building our smartphone app. So this is kind of what it looks like in the form. You can't download it quite yet. I'm just going to be, it's kind of a suspenseful thing, right? So stay tuned, to be continued. This isn't quite wrapped up, but we're getting pretty close. So I'll go through some of what it will look like. Getting started, once you download the app, you basically swipe through things on your smartphone as you go along. So you'll see this getting started, and then you swipe to the next thing. For a lot of them, it basically just outlines and is exactly like the Wyoming Rangeland Monitoring Guide. It has the same techniques in it. Starts with your site photograph. You can take a picture with your phone. And the best part of this is that it goes into a report. You don't have to go back to the office and incorporate things and download waypoints and download pictures. That step is taken out for us. So I think we can begin to increase our efficiency by just the click of a button on our phones that we probably already have with us in our pockets. So like I said, a lot of the monitoring methods, you'll recognize these from the Rangeland Monitoring Guide. They're taking things right out of that. We're hoping to include a few more techniques other than this. A lot of folks and consultants have commented to me the belt transects and things like that are often used on the landscapes as well, so we may try to incorporate this as we go along. The plan is to have this available prior to next field season, so that's kind of our timeline. But I did want to just kind of put a plug in and introduce you to kind of get geared up, so that way if you don't have a smartphone, you can probably go buy one, right? Everyone will want to jump on this bandwagon. So, like I said, numerous techniques will be, and monitoring methods will be incorporated along with a few more that you don't see in the Rangeland Monitoring Guide. So here's just some screenshots that I have of my phone. This is the way it appears. Again, it follows the monitoring guide. The same information that you would put in for the guide are on the app. If it's an optional, you can swipe right past, but if it's required, you need to put the field in. But like I said, these are just a few screenshots of what it'll look like. You can put in your season of use. We'll always have that. Again, it goes back to it's already in the report once you put those in and you save your information. And it won't take out any of the descriptions. You'll still have your cover by life form description or your riparian, the green line description, all of that, and the equipment you'll need is right there on your phone still for you. And you don't need the form because it's on your phone, right? So pretty efficient. Once you start making your points, this is an example of the cover by life form. Basically, it shows you you're on point 1 of your transect. You're going to be collecting 100 points. You click that button, and then you swipe to go on, or you can take a picture. So that's 1. This is 2. Like I said, it's pretty simple. It documents as you go by. The best part is that once you get all of that done, it shoots out a nice report for you, and that going back to the office and incorporating your sheets that were once handwritten are already in the system. So this is just an example. As you would scroll down, it would be your points, and what you documented, the grasses, the forbs, if you were doing it by life form. So, like I said, this is just an end result of what it probably will look like. We may tweak things along the way, but it will spit out a form for you once you've filled in all of your cover by life form. And it has all of your photos and your pictures within that as well, your images. So this is the list that you saw before. Gather your monitoring forms all the way down to analyze. So that's what we went through. If you do this, if you have a smartphone, some of those steps are taken out. Obviously, you have your smartphone, so you don't need to gather your data forms. You already have that photo or the picture, the camera with you. You already have your GPS. So you just take your photos with your phone. You do your GPS with your phone. You conduct your monitoring right there on your phone. And once you're doing it, it's already uploading it onto a form. I feel like this might then be, if we make that piece more efficient, might then be the prime or the top priority to analyze that once we get in there. I'm hoping that maybe we can work to develop some sort of graphs or charts or something like that people already see. So not only does this increase efficiency, I feel like this will tell a better story. Sometimes I think that if I put myself in a landowner's shoes and I say, yeah, I've been monitoring for 5 to 10 years, but I don't see anything. I don't know what that means. I have this shoebox full of information, but I don't really know what that means. So I don't just think this is more efficient or it will increase the analysis piece. I also think it'll help us make better decisions and our landowners make better decisions once they have a visual. I'm a very visual person, and I think there's others out there that are that way. If they see, oh my, I am trending down in a rapid fashion, you know, that maybe they'll start to do things differently or make changes. So I make the point that, like I said, not only are we being more efficient, but I think this is going to be better for our landscapes in the long run if we do try to make this a little easier for our folks. So with that, I didn't know if there was any discussion, comments, questions. Barton. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, will the forms in the app have the ability to be customized? And yes. And that's one reason I asked Natalie to be here. Like I said, I'm kind of an old soul, and I'm just getting started in this techie world. So if there's technical questions, I think Natalie can back me up on this one.
The way the system works, too, is if you're up for it, you can actually build the forms yourself in Excel, and then our website will convert it into a form that you can download to your device.
Did that answer your question? Joe, yeah. I sort of want to feel like Oprah, so yeah. Let me come right up here, Joe, and you can just talk into this little microphone.
Come on down.
Come on down, or maybe the second thing.
I had two questions. One, I know some of the applications that you put on your phone, like some of the weed ID, you have to actually have cell coverage at the time you use it. You know, once this software is downloaded on there, can you do, you know, multiple forms, multiple transits, etc., without cell coverage? And then when you have reception, it'll dump it. Okay. The other one,
would you reiterate that?
oh, the other one, in the picture you showed of the report, it had the pictures, you know, and all that. But was there a summary of the data?
There will be.
Oh, okay.
If I did a screenshot below, yeah, I should probably hold it up. Yeah. So the question was, can you see the data? And yes, below. I think we might tweak that because it's pretty long right now. So that's something that I'll work with Natalie on to actually. And that was the reason I didn't put it on there, because it probably won't be that long. We'll try to scrunch it up and make it a little bit easier, and so there's not so much scrolling. But yeah, the data will be right underneath the pictures. Good question. Yeah, Clark.
Rachel.
How do you really feel, Clark? No, I'm just kidding.
You might not want to ask.
That's true.
No, I do. I guess the first thing I need to throw a plug out for Natalie and AgTerra. Being a local guy, been with the Chamber of Commerce, local business,
and actually they're doing some cool things. The other part is you don't have to use a smartphone. For some of us that are gray and can't see the smartphone, a tablet works great. So there is, yeah, because I've been playing around with it. There's a lot of functionality. Take time to go by. I think, Natalie, don't you have a booth out? Do take time, go by there, because there's the Map It Fast also has a lot of things that I think we can use in rangeland monitoring. So
is it just the data transfer with Wi-Fi then instead of the cell?
No. Yes, we'll do it Wi-Fi too. Yep. Had to think a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, like Clark said, those tablets, and they, I mean, you can spend about the same amount of money for a good GPS or a good camera if you're just doing it for the sole purpose. I mean, obviously, if you're doing sample freak and sample point, you're going to want to have a different goal in mind. But for this, you can probably spend about the same on a tablet that you would something like that. So good comment. Yeah, AgTerra. Go AgTerra. Evan, go ahead. I'll just repeat your question. So the question was, do you have the capability of linking the data once it's in the form back to an Excel program? And I believe that would be possible, right? Yep, I think so. Yeah, that's right. There's various options that it gives you once it spits that stuff out as what sort of format, and then you can go in there and change open with, and change that up. So yeah, a KMZ or a Excel or anything like that to put it into Google Earth can also be used as well. One question up there, and then I'll get hers, and then I'll come back there too. Then I don't have to get so much exercise.
It's a quick one. Is this also going to be supported by Apple products?
So that's the hang-up. Yes, the program is supported by Android. I'll let Natalie.
Yeah, it is just supported by Android right now. We're looking to develop it not only for Apple but for Windows-based. But that's probably going to be several months in the future. Right now we're just with the Android.
That's something down the road, hopefully. Good question.
Yeah, no, it's not a long one. I was just wondering if there's a way to connect this data that you're collecting with precipitation data in the field. Is there a way to sync that so it's on your reports, or that it can be connected in real time while you're out there, so you can tell what time of year, what moisture you've had already, that kind of thing?
I would imagine you could build some sort of. I don't know that, Natalie. Is there a way to? So like a sensor, Jeremiah. I hadn't thought about that either. That's a good comment. That to couple that with precipitation, we might work on that when we're working together, because that would be pretty easy and right there with it. Good comment. We'll work on that. To be continued. So stay tuned for this app to be coming out. This was meant to be a on the edge of your seat kind of presentation.